So Iran says it achieved its targets from the attack, and Israel said that it countered the attack with 99% of success. According to military calculations, what is achieved by Iranian attack? Dr. Muhammad from Beirut. When there is a response, this is a translation of the Arabic speaker from Arabic into English for your information, sir. After this attack and after exceeding all red lines by Israel according to humanitarian and international laws and standards, as it does in Gaza, also to attack a consulate in Syria, which is considered Iranian territory, that needs a response. But this response, according to digital media, whether in Tehran or Tel Aviv considers it achieved success because it didn't allow this response to achieve any of the objectives. And 99% of the drones were shot. So it considered itself that it succeeded. And Iranians also announced it at the official level that they achieved 50% of their objectives, despite of the defenses, air defenses. So each party convinces their people that they achieved success. Regard to the political level, Dr. Marcus, we were aware at the politics level, following up the Iranian-Israeli relations. This is the first direct attack by Iran against Israel territory. And in regard to all considerations, it used to be a red line to do that by Iran. From the political reality, how that may achieve any change in the situation?
Well, over the last 24 hours, Iran has set a precedent in the Middle East. And that precedent is as follows. In future, each and every act of Israeli aggression against Iran will be met with force. The response to the act of Israeli aggression against the Iranian consulate in Damascus was by the Iranian government was a measured and clever one. And by doing so, the Iranians did not fall into the trap set by the Israelis. Because if Iran had launched a military onslaught against Israel, then America would have been compelled to take retaliatory military measures against Iran, which would have resulted in a war between America and Iran. And despite how much America and Iran bitterly dislike each other, both Washington and Tehran do not want a war with each other. And therefore, the Iranian response was never going to give the Israelis what they want. The Israelis are looking to incite a war between America and Iran. And the Iranians ensured through their actions in the last 24 hours that they did not fall into the trap and give the Israelis what they wanted. And let it be known that if Iran wanted to inflict serious damage and losses on the Iranians through the Iranian arsenal of drones and missiles, very potent and sophisticated drones and missiles, then the Iranians could have done that. But the Iranian response, as I said, was a measured one and a clever one. And let us not forget too that the Iranians are holding 25 Israeli citizens captive after Iranian commandos took control of a Israeli vessel. So the Iranians have put the Israelis in a very tricky situation. How will the Israeli government respond to the 25 Israeli citizens who are now held captive by the Iranians? And who is to say that in future, if there is another act of Israeli aggression against Iran, Iran will not respond by taking over another Israeli vessel and capturing further Israeli citizens. So Iran has put the ball firmly in Israel's court.
So that takes us to the expected response by Israel. So what can this response by Israel, and at the same time the spokesperson Daniel Hagari said there will be a response by Israel, and the rightist of Israel said it will take a response and it is urgent to take a response by Israel. But Washington warns against any Israeli response against Iran. How can we expect the Israeli response, whether military or diplomatic? In which level? This question to our guest from Beirut. There will be no desire to take the responses by the rightists. The response maybe more rational. Secondly, the Iranian response was a message more than a painful action. Iran tests the Iron Dome and the air defenses of Israel, and it seems if it intends to disrupt Israel, it would have not satisfied with these a number of drones or missiles, but they could drain the capabilities of the Iron Dome completely from the first wave and send in missiles that does not have any counter air defenses. So this limits Israel in regard to the response. What Israel fears from Hezbollah? It fears there may be a hunter or some waves from Hezbollah of 2,000, 3,000 missiles, and the Iron Dome can treat these waves. The Iron Dome can resist for 1 week maybe, but there are Hezbollah capabilities for 2 weeks to disperse their missiles on the Israeli territories from another side. Today, if there was no air defense of French, British, US, Israel would have not able to control its air defense. So in the future, it depends on its decision in regard to this coalition. It has become a part of this coalition, and it will not respond individually. Its decision was jointly taken. So, Tehran diplomatically may solve this before military action. So these are different scenarios at the political and diplomatic level. To Dr. Marcos. Dr. Marcos, so as a description of the Iranian attack as limited and very clever to choose the objectives. And to this regard, as a clever attack by Iran, do you believe that Iran planned what is post this attack? Does Iran have any calculations of the power balances in the region after this attack?
In the last few years, the dimensions in the Middle East have started to change, because no longer does America, Britain and Israel have the unlimited power that it once previously enjoyed. Why? Because there is in existence in the Middle East today what I describe as a unofficial alliance between Russia, Iran, Syria and Hezbollah. And it is that unofficial alliance which is limiting American, British and Israeli expansionism and aggression in the Middle East. So Iran today has immense amounts of not just power, but also confidence. Why? Because Iran enjoys a strategic partnership with Russia, and Russia is a superpower. Iran has a very large, sophisticated and potent arsenal of missiles and drones. And some of the technology behind the missiles was given to Iran by the Russians. So the situation in the Middle East today is very different to how it was, say, 10 years ago. Whilst the Americans still have supremacy in the Middle East, that supremacy has been reduced. And I believe that whilst America will always back Israel, because Israel is the main conduit for American influence and power in the Middle East, nonetheless, the Americans in private will say to the Israelis that they will not go to war with Iran. And the Americans will say to the Israelis in private, we urge you very strongly not to respond to Iran's actions over the last 24 hours. But let it be made emphatically clear. Iran over the last 24 hours responded to an act of Israeli aggression. When the Israelis bombed the Iranian consulate in Damascus, they didn't just violate international law and the United Nations Charter. They violated an internationally adhered to norm, namely that embassies and consulates are never ever to be targeted with military force. So Iran had no choice but to respond. And the Iranians responded, as I said, in a very calm, measured and clever way. And as for the Americans and the British, not only have they not condemned the Israeli attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, but they have also said that the attack did not violate international law or the United Nations Charter. And that demonstrates how the Americans and the British have no integrity. They have no credibility whatsoever. And it also demonstrates how America and Britain, along with Israel, are the principal criminals in the world and the principal violators of international law and the United Nations Charter in the world.
Our guest from Beirut, it is very important now to understand how the implications of the Iranian attack on Israel and how that impacts the Israeli war in Gaza. Are we going to see more Israeli vicious practices in the Gaza or not? Today in Gaza there is a decision that Egypt national security is a red line. What Israel needs to do in Rafah is of an adverse impact of the national security of Egypt. Israel will not be eased only after cutting Gaza limits as it promises itself. So that urges the invading the Philadelphia crossing. This is for Egypt. Egypt announced it is a red line. Displacement is a red line. Israel is in a very difficult situation. So it is trying to deplete the capabilities through the opposition. The opposition made its own weapons and ammunition, and its decision is very important. Until now, they resist. So this depletion and attrition is faced of the opposition axis. Opposition axis, as announced by Hassan Nasrallah, we are a sister axis. We will continue our fight. This is in conflict with the U.S. strategy that states to prevent Israel under attack in the future. So Israel will never accept, and US never accepts the existence of this threat from the north. So Iran was leading this axis from the back. Now they are leading this axis from the front, and they have the courage to do this response. Or so Iran has become more present, more attrition in Gaza, more attrition of the Israeli forces also. So Israel toward Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, and Yemen seems that there will be an Israeli response, not toward Iran, but toward the north. Dr. Marcus, our guest, our final question to you: how do you expect that how this attack will be tackled and treated, and the impact of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Will Israel review its options, military options or other options in this conflict in the near future, and how that will impact, that may lead to a settlement, maybe?
It has been clear now for a number of years that the Israeli military cannot afford to become embroiled in a full-blown war with Hezbollah and a full-blown war with Iran. Gone are the days when the Israeli military ruled supreme in the Middle East. Hezbollah today is, in effect, a formidable conventional fighting force. And Hezbollah demonstrated in 2006 that Israel can no longer do what it used to do in southern Lebanon. And when it comes to Iran, I do not believe that the Israelis truly want to become embroiled in a war with Iran.
Israel may resort to a political settlement after any military operation in Lebanon or Syria. What do you think?
No, I do not believe that. I believe that the Israeli military, whilst they are bogged down in Gaza, will keep on fighting relentlessly. They will keep on massacring Palestinian civilians, including women and children, and they will keep on attempting to incite a war between America and Iran. Because if there is a war between America and Iran, then the Middle East will go up in flames, and then the spotlight will be solely on the war between America and Iran, which would leave the Israelis to do whatever they want to do against the Palestinians in Gaza. And they would be able to slaughter even more Palestinians because the world would be preoccupied with a war between America and Iran. So the Israelis will not agree to a political solution. The only way that will happen is if America stop giving Israel and their unconditional support. Stop giving Israel a blank check year on year. But the Americans won't do that because America needs Israel as much as Israel needs America. Without Israel, how would America have mastery over the Middle East?
Much from London, Dr. Marcus. We have had the honor receiving you today. Thank you very much for your valuable information.